When Michael Jordan went to buy Christmas presents for underprivileged children, he had no idea he would be humiliated. He merely wished to do some good for a family but suffered a terrible injustice. And what shocked him the most was his own reaction. It was Christmas Eve, 6 p.m., and the streets of Chicago were deserted due to the biting cold. But there, clinging to the window of a toy store like two injured sparrows, were two children who made the heart of the greatest basketball player of all time ache. "Marcus, stop the car!" Jordan yelled at his driver with an urgency he had never employed before. The limousine halted with a jolt that nearly threw Jordan forward. His eyes were fixed on the most devastating scene he had ever witnessed. An entire family living on the street on Christmas Eve. The father, a dejected-looking Asian-American man, tried to shield his face from passing pedestrians. The mother, a white woman with disheveled hair, clutched her children to her chest, attempting to warm them with her own body. But it was the children that pierced Jordan's soul like sharp knives. An 8-year-old boy, biracial, pointed at the toys in the window, his eyes shining with impossible longing. A 5-year-old girl, with unruly curls escaping a torn beanie, pressed her little face against the icy glass. "Daddy," the girl's voice cut through the limousine's glass like a gunshot. "Will Santa Claus find us here on the street?" Jordan felt his stomach churn. Suddenly, he was 7 years old again. It was 1970, and his family was going through hard times. And that Christmas, Jordan found only a used basketball beneath a scrawny tree. But it was that ball that changed his life. "Mr. Jordan?" Marcus, his driver of 10 years, turned back, concerned. "Is everything all right?" Jordan wiped away a tear that had escaped without permission. His fists were clenched, not in anger, but in absolute determination. "Marcus, do you see that family?" "Yes, sir. It's breaking my heart, too. I'm going into that store and buying gifts for those children. It won't take long." He opened the limousine door, and the Chicago cold hit him like a punch. But inside his chest, his heart was aflame. He strode toward the store's entrance, unaware that David Miller had already discreetly activated the silent alarm, convinced a criminal was approaching his establishment. The doorbell of Wonderland Toys chimed like a funeral bell as Jordan pushed open the glass door. David Miller, the 45-year-old manager, looked up from behind the counter like a hawk spotting prey. His glasses reflected the store's Christmas lights as he scrutinized every inch of the tall, dark man who had just entered. Jordan was clad in a plain gray hoodie, dark jeans, and understated Nike sneakers. To any ordinary observer, he appeared to be just another man doing some last-minute shopping. But to David Miller, still reeling from the violent robbery his store had suffered precisely 1 week prior, this man was a walking threat. "Good evening," Jordan said politely, making his way toward the children's toy section. David did not reply. Instead, he made a subtle gesture to Jennifer, his 22-year-old employee, who immediately understood the code. She ambled over to the counter and, feigning the organization of papers, pressed the silent alarm button that would alert mall security to a suspicious situation. Jordan navigated the store aisles with the natural grace of an athlete, but there was something more. Purpose. His eyes scanned each shelf not like a thief looking for loot, but like a man searching for treasures to gift. He made a beeline for the very section that had been ransacked the previous week. David felt his heart quicken. He knows exactly where the most expensive toys are, he thought. This isn't a coincidence. He must have been the mastermind behind last week's robbery, coming back to finish the job. The week before, 3 masked men had stormed the store during business hours. They had gone straight for the infant electronics and imported toy section, making off with over $15,000 worth of merchandise. One of the robbers had shoved David against a shelf, causing a bruised back that still made him limp slightly. "Jennifer," David whispered urgently, "call security. Tell them we have a code yellow." Jennifer shivered. Code yellow meant suspect casing the store for a potential robbery. She picked up the phone with trembling hands. Meanwhile, Jordan had found precisely what he was looking for. On the highest shelf sat a children's basketball hoop, identical to the one he'd seen Tommy admiring in the window display. Right next to it was a doll with curly hair that reminded him of Lucy. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Perfect," he murmured to himself, reaching out to select the toys. David saw the movement and interpreted it as confirmation of his suspicions. The man was tagging the items he intended to steal. Without a second thought, David darted from behind the counter and strode swiftly towards Jordan, his heart hammering like a war drum. "Excuse me," David boomed, louder than necessary. "Can I help you with something?" The tone was overtly accusatory. Other shoppers in the store, three families doing some last-minute shopping, paused their activities and looked over. Jordan turned slowly, and David was struck by the intensity of the man's gaze. There was something in Jordan's eyes that was both powerful and gentle, like a lion that had chosen not to strike. "Good evening," Jordan replied, a calm smile on his face. "I'm looking for some special gifts for children. Could you perhaps show me the most beautiful toys you have?" The innocent query sounded like a confession to David's paranoid ears. Most beautiful toys obviously meant most expensive, exactly what the thieves had taken. "Gifts for children?" David repeated suspiciously. "What kind of children?" Jordan frowned, perplexed by the odd question. "Well, normal children. An 8-year-old boy who loves basketball and a 5-year-old girl who likes dolls." David felt a surge of panic. "Listen here," David said, advancing on Jordan with escalating aggression. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I'm not going to let you case my store." Jordan blinked, genuinely bewildered. "Case my store? What are you talking about?" "You know very well what I'm talking about," David yelled, drawing the attention of the entire store. "You and your cronies think you can come back here and finish what you started?" The preposterous accusation left Jordan stunned. He opened his mouth to respond, but David was already shouting, "Security! We have a criminal in the store." The cry reverberated through Wonderland Toys like a cannon blast. All conversation ceased. Children began to cry. Parents clutched their little ones closer, and Jordan, the man who had merely wanted to spread some Christmas cheer, found himself at the epicenter of a nightmare that was only just beginning. The silence that followed David's outburst was so thick it seemed to have a substance of its own. Jordan remained motionless, his hands still extended toward the toys, as if time had frozen. But his eyes, those eyes that had stared down adversaries in the most decisive moments of his career, began to reveal something perilous. A lethal calm. "Sir," Jordan spoke, his voice low and controlled, yet somehow more menacing than any shout. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding, my foot!" David bellowed, advancing further. "You broke into my store last week, and now you're back to finish the job." One of the families present, the Pattersons with two small children, immediately exited the shop, the mother murmuring, "Let's go, quickly." One of the men present, a 50-year-old attorney named William Hayes, discreetly retrieved his mobile phone and began recording, sensing he was about to witness something extraordinary. Jordan took a deep breath, striving to maintain the composure he had cultivated through countless hostile sports press interviews. "Sir, my name is Michael Jordan. I've come to purchase Christmas gifts for two children in need outside. If you'll permit me to explain—" "Michael Jordan?" David scoffed derisively. "And I'm Santa Claus. Do you criminals truly believe we're imbeciles?" David's sarcastic laughter echoed through the store, like fingernails scraping across a blackboard. Jennifer, the employee, watched the scene unfold with mounting unease. Something about the black man's dignity, the way he maintained his composure even while being publicly humiliated, didn't align with the profile of a criminal. "Please," Jordan tried again, his voice still calm but tinged with urgency. "If you would just look out the window, you'll see a family with two children. I simply wish to buy some presents for them. It's Christmas." "Ah, now I see the scheme," David roared, as if he'd uncovered a crime of the century. "You're using children as a diversion for your accomplices to rob the store." The accusation was so preposterous that Jordan felt a surge of incredulity. He glanced around the store at the apprehensive faces of the other customers, and for the first time in decades felt utterly helpless. It wasn't the helplessness of sporting defeat. It was the helplessness of a black man confronting pure, irrational prejudice. "Jennifer!" David bellowed at his employee. "Call the police, now!" "Mr. Miller," Jennifer hesitated. "Perhaps we should hear what he has to say." "Call the police!" David bellowed, making Jennifer jump. With trembling hands, Jennifer reached for the phone. Jordan watched the scene unfold and made a decision. Slowly, he extended his hands to his sides, palms open, in a non-threatening posture he had learned far too early in life. "All right," Jordan said calmly. "I'll stay right here until you feel safe. But please, just look out the window and see that there's a real family out there who needs help." David interpreted Jordan's calm as criminal arrogance. "Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I'll fall for your little act?" David stalked closer, invading Jordan's personal space. "I know what you people are capable of. Last week, one of yours pushed an elderly lady to the ground." Something shifted in Jordan's eyes. The calm remained, but beneath it, a beast was stirring. "Sir," Jordan said, each word slow and deliberate, "I have never in my life harmed an innocent person, and I won't start today. But if you don't stop falsely accusing me—" "Are you threatening me?" David shrieked triumphantly. "Everyone heard! He's threatening me!" It was then that William Hayes, the lawyer filming everything, stepped forward. "Sir," he said to David, "I am recording this entire situation, and what I see is a man being accused without any evidence." David spun towards Hayes like a snake. "And you must be his accomplice. Delete that footage now." "I won't delete anything," Hayes replied firmly. "In fact, I'll continue recording to protect all parties involved." It was then that Jordan made the mistake that would turn a misunderstanding into a crisis. He took a step toward the most expensive toy section. "If you won't let me explain," Jordan said, "at least let me pay for the gifts and leave. The children out there are cold." But to David, that movement toward the priciest toys was the final confirmation that he was right all along. "Jennifer," David roared, "he's going for the expensive toys." Just like the others did. And then, in a move that would forever change the lives of everyone present, David Miller did something he could never undo. He grabbed Michael Jordan's arm and screamed for the entire store to hear, "Security! Seize this criminal before he steals everything." David Miller's touch on Jordan's arm was like igniting a dynamite fuse. Not because Jordan was about to explode, but because he had just crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The 6'6" man turned slowly, his eyes meeting David's with an intensity that made the manager involuntarily step back. "Take your hand off of me." Jordan's voice was so low only David could hear it, but there was something in the tone that sent a chill down the manager's spine. "I'm not taking anything off," David shouted, tightening his grip on Jordan's arm. "You're standing right here until the police arrive." That's when all hell broke loose at Wonderland Toys. "Help!" David bellowed to the entire store. "This criminal is threatening me. Someone call mall security." William Hayes kept filming, but now other customers were pulling out their phones too. The smartphone era meant every public drama became an instant viral sensation. A 30-year-old mother, Sarah Johnson, held her 6-year-old son to her chest as she live-streamed on Facebook. "Guys, there's a robbery happening right now at the toy store in Northbrook Mall." Jennifer, the employee, was on the phone with the police, her voice trembling. "Please hurry. My boss is holding a suspect, but I'm not sure if—" "Not sure about what?" the dispatcher asked. "I'm not sure if this man is actually a criminal," she whispered, cupping the phone's mouthpiece. Meanwhile, Jordan did something that surprised everyone. He didn't resist. Instead, he stood completely still, allowing David to hold him. But his eyes began to sweep the store with computer-like precision, memorizing every face, every reaction, every person witnessing his humiliation. "Sir," Jordan said calmly to William Hayes, who was still filming, "please make sure you're recording everything, every word, every action." "I am," Hayes replied, struck by the man's composure. "Good," Jordan smiled sadly, "because I want everyone to see exactly how a black man is treated when he tries to do a good deed." The sentence cut through the store's air like a blade. Some customers looked down, uncomfortable. Others began to question if they were truly witnessing a crime or something far worse. David, however, was lost in his paranoia and fear. "Cut the theatrics," David bellowed. "You criminals always pull the race card when you're caught." The ensuing silence was deafening. Even the children in the store ceased their crying. William Hayes whispered, "My God," and continued filming. Jennifer dropped her phone, horrified by what she had just heard. It was then that Jordan did something no one expected. He began to laugh. Not a joyous laugh, but a bitter one. laced with decades of similar experiences. "You know what?" Jordan said, still wearing that sad smile. "I've been through this before. When I was young, when I was starting out in the NBA, when I bought my first house in a nice neighborhood. There's always someone like you who looks at me and sees only a threat." "I'm not racist," David shouted defensively. "I'm just protecting my store." "Protecting it from what?" Jordan asked calmly. "From a man who walked in politely, stated what he wanted to purchase, and attempted to pay for everything?" David's mouth opened to respond, but no words emerged. Because deep down, he knew Jordan was right. There was no actual evidence of wrongdoing, just a black man in an expensive store being treated as a suspect for existing. It was then that Emma Wilson, a 7-year-old African-American girl with her mother, who were shopping for last-minute gifts, pulled away from her mother's hand and ran towards Jordan. "Mommy!" Emma shrieked in a high-pitched child's voice. "It's Michael Jordan! It really is him!" The child's exclamation echoed through the store like thunder. Every adult held their breath. David Miller felt his world crumble. And Jordan. Jordan looked down and saw those bright little eyes filled with adoration, and for the first time since entering the store, he offered a genuine smile. "Hi, Princess," Jordan said gently to Emma as David still clutched his arm. "How are you?" "I knew it was you," Emma squealed with delight. "My dad has all your posters. You're the best basketball player in the world." David Miller released Jordan's arm as if it had caught fire. His face drained of all color, turning a ghastly white. His mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound escaped. Because slowly, very slowly, he began to grasp the enormity of the mistake he had just made. And outside the shop, pressing their little faces against the cold glass, Tommy and Lucy Chen watched the whole commotion, not understanding that the tall, kind man was being humiliated for trying to help them. Emma Wilson's voice sliced through the store's tension like a pure shaft of light, but David Miller, lost in his paranoia and wounded pride, couldn't bring himself to accept he'd made the most devastating mistake of his life. "Stop lying, girl," David bellowed at Emma, causing the 7-year-old to flinch back in fear. "That man isn't Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan wouldn't walk around dressed like that, like a, like a, like a what?" Jordan inquired calmly, though a fire burned in his eyes. "Finish the sentence." David swallowed hard, realizing too late he was digging his own grave. Around the store, cell phones continued to record every word, every facial contortion, every moment of this public humiliation. "Mommy!" Emma ran back to her mother, Denise Wilson. Tell them it really is Michael Jordan." Denise Wilson, a 35-year-old nurse, gazed at Jordan for a few seconds, her heart leaping. She had grown up in Chicago in the 90s. She had watched every Bulls game. She knew that face, that posture, those eyes better than she knew her own brother. "Oh my God," Denise whispered, covering her mouth with her hands. "Emma's right. It really is him." "No!" David shrieked, refusing to acknowledge reality. "You're all in on this. It's a well-organized ring." William Hayes, the attorney filming everything, stepped forward. "Mr. Miller, I'd advise you to cease speaking immediately. You're incriminating yourself with every utterance." "Incriminating?" David laughed hysterically. "I'm protecting my store from criminals." It was then that Jordan made a decision that would change everything. Slowly, deliberately, he withdrew his wallet from his back pocket. Every movement was measured, calm, as if he were defusing a bomb. "Jennifer," Jordan said to the employee, "could you come here, please?" Jennifer hesitated, glancing at David, then at Jordan. Something in his voice compelled her to approach. "Open this wallet," Jordan instructed, handing it to her, "and read the name on the driver's license." With trembling hands, Jennifer opened the wallet. Her eyes widened as she saw not only the driver's license but black credit cards, a Chicago Bulls membership card, and a photograph of Jordan with Barack Obama. "Mr. Miller," Jennifer whispered, It really is Michael Jordan." The silence that followed was so absolute, one could hear the snow pinging against the windows. David Miller froze, as if cement had been poured into his veins. But then, instead of admitting his mistake, he did something far worse. "That proves nothing!" David bellowed. Wallets can be faked. You criminals are getting more sophisticated. That's when Jordan lost his composure for the first time. Enough! His voice boomed through the store like a lion's roar. Enough of this humiliation! Everyone in the store flinched. Children began to cry. Some adults shuffled towards the exit. But Jordan wasn't finished. I came here, Jordan said, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion, with the sole purpose of buying Christmas presents for two children who are cold out there. And you treat me like a criminal, grab me, humiliate me, and on top of it all, call a child a liar. I, David stammered, finally beginning to grasp the reality. You what? Jordan took a step forward, and David recoiled. You were protecting your store? From what? From a man who wanted to pay for gifts? Emma Wilson, the brave 7-year-old girl, wriggled free from her mother's grasp again and ran to Jordan. Mr. Jordan, she said, her voice quivering, please don't be mad. Mommy always says some people are just blind in their hearts. The child's pure innocence cut through Jordan's anger like a hot knife through butter. He knelt to meet Emma's eye level, and when he spoke, his voice had returned to its gentle tone. Thank you, little one, Jordan said, gently touching the girl's cheek. You're very wise for your 7 years. It was then that police sirens began to wail outside. The sound grew to a deafening crescendo, and through the store windows, everyone could see the red and blue lights flashing off the snow. David Miller realized he had called the police to arrest Michael Jordan, and outside, Tommy and Lucy Chen watched the police lights with terror. Because in their experience, police only showed up to make things worse for people like them. The store's doors burst open with such force that the bell nearly tore free from the ceiling. Officer Patricia Rodriguez entered like a storm of authority, her right hand resting instinctively on her holster, her eyes scanning the scene with the practiced ease of 15 years on the Chicago streets. Chicago Police, Patricia announced. I received a call about a disturbance and possible assault. Who made the report? David Miller practically tripped over himself, hurrying over. Me! I called it in! David pointed dramatically at Jordan. This man was casing my store for a robbery. He's a dangerous criminal. Patricia glanced at Jordan, who remained kneeling beside Emma Wilson, and something in her brain clicked into place. There was something familiar about the face, the posture, but she couldn't quite place it. Sir, Patricia said to Jordan, could you slowly stand and show me your hands? Jordan rose with his usual elegance, keeping his hands visible. Of course, officer. No problem at all. He's lying, David bellowed. He was here to case the joint, just like the others who robbed my store last week. Patricia frowned. Something wasn't adding up. In her 15 years on the force, she'd arrested hundreds of criminals, and none of them had the calm, dignified bearing of this tall man. Sir, Patricia said to Jordan, what was the reason for your visit to this store? I came to purchase Christmas gifts for 2 children in need out there, Jordan replied calmly. A family that is living on the streets. Lies, David shrieked. He was heading straight for the most expensive toys, just like the thieves last week. It was then that Emma Wilson, who had remained by Jordan's side, erupted with the pure indignation of a 7-year-old. You are being very mean, Emma yelled at David, causing everyone in the store to turn and stare at her. That's Michael Jordan. He's the nicest man in the world. He would never do anything bad. Patricia blinked. Michael Jordan? She looked more closely at the man before her, and suddenly the pieces fit. The face, the height, the posture. Oh my goodness. Sir, Patricia said, her tone completely changing, could you please tell me your full name? Michael Jeffrey Jordan, he replied placidly. David Miller felt the world spin around him. No! David screamed desperately. You can't believe him. It's an elaborate con. Michael Jordan would never dress like this. Patricia completely ignored David. She had recognized Jordan from Chicago Police Department charity events. For the past 5 years, Jordan had donated over $2 million to the city's underprivileged family assistance programs. Mr. Jordan, Patricia said respectfully, I am so sorry about this. Can you explain exactly what happened here? He is not Michael Jordan, David bellowed, losing all composure. He's a con man, a criminal. Uh, Mr. Miller, Patricia shouted with police authority. Stop yelling immediately, or I will arrest you for disorderly conduct. The ensuing silence was broken only by the sound of David's heavy breathing and the muffled sobs of a few frightened children in the store. Jordan took a deep breath and began to recount his version of events. Officer Rodriguez, Jordan said, reading her name tag. I was walking home when I saw a homeless family out here. Two small children admiring the toys in the window. I decided to come in and buy some gifts for them. And then, Patricia asked, pulling out her notepad, the manager immediately treated me like a suspect. He accused me of casing the store for a robbery. When I tried to explain my intention, he physically grabbed me and started yelling that I was a criminal. Patricia looked at David, who was ashen. Mr. Miller, is this true? David opened and closed his mouth several times like a fish out of water. The store was robbed last week. I thought. You thought what? Patricia asked coldly. That every black man who walks into your store is a potential criminal? No, David shouted. I'm not racist. I was just protecting. Officer, Emma Wilson interrupted, tugging on the officer's pants. You have to know. This man, she pointed at David, called Michael Jordan a criminal and didn't believe me when I told him who he was. Patricia looked at Emma, then at Jordan, then at David. The situation was becoming increasingly clear. Mr. Miller, Patricia said, her voice glacial, are you telling me you physically assaulted Michael Jordan and falsely accused him of attempted robbery? I didn't assault anyone, David yelled. I just grabbed his arm. That's called physical assault, Patricia said, taking notes, and false accusation is also a crime. Just then, William Hayes, who had been filming the entire incident, approached. Officer, Hayes said, I'm an attorney, and I filmed the entire situation. I can confirm that Mr. Miller did indeed physically assault Mr. Jordan and falsely accuse him of a crime. Patricia nodded. I'll need this recording as evidence. David Miller realized he was in serious trouble, but instead of admitting fault, he made one last desperate attempt. You don't understand, David shouted. This man might still be armed. He could be impersonating Michael Jordan to— Enough, Patricia bellowed. Mr. Miller, you are under arrest. The announcement echoed through the store like a cannon blast. David stood frozen, unable to comprehend what he was hearing. Arrested? David stammered. For what? Assault, false accusation, disturbing the public peace, and racial discrimination. Patricia listed as she reached for her handcuffs. It was then that Jordan did something that surprised everyone. Officer Rodriguez, Jordan said calmly, I would prefer not to press charges. Patricia paused, handcuffs poised. Sir? I don't want him arrested, Jordan repeated. I just want to buy my gifts and leave. David stared at Jordan in utter disbelief. The man he had humiliated, assaulted, and falsely accused was protecting him? Why? David whispered. Why don't you want me arrested? Jordan looked at David with a mixture of pity and wisdom. Because it's Christmas, Jordan said simply. And because everyone makes mistakes, and he needs to learn from his. Patricia put the handcuffs away, but her expression made it clear she was far from satisfied. Mr. Jordan, Patricia said, are you sure? This man committed crimes against you. I'm sure, Jordan nodded. But I'd like you to check on the family outside. They're cold and might need assistance. Patricia glanced out the window and saw for the first time Tommy and Lucy Chen pressed against the glass, watching the entire spectacle with wide, frightened eyes. Good heaven, Patricia murmured. They're just children. It was then that David Miller, witnessing Jordan's compassion even after everything that had transpired, felt something shatter within his chest. For the first time, he truly looked at the family outside. He saw the father trying to mask his shame. He saw the mother clutching her children against the biting cold. He saw the children who just wanted a happy Christmas. And finally, after an hour of blindness brought on by prejudice and fear, David Miller began to see the truth. But would it be too late to mend the damage he had wrought? David Miller remained silent for a long 30 seconds, processing the magnitude of the situation. His mind raced like a computer attempting a reboot after a devastating virus. Michael Jordan. The key. Michael Jordan was in his store, and he had... Oh God, what had he done? No, David whispered, shaking his head violently. This can't be happening. This has to be a nightmare. Jennifer, the 22-year-old employee, finally found the courage to speak. Mr. Miller, she said timidly, I think you owe him an apology. David spun around to face Jennifer as if she had just slapped him. An apology? David bellowed. I was protecting this store, protecting you, and now you want me to apologize for doing my job? Your job, Patricia Rodriguez interjected. Mr. Miller, falsely accusing people of crimes is not your job. Physically assaulting innocent customers is not your job. David started to speak. I, he stammered, tears beginning to well in his eyes. Emma Wilson, who had remained quiet for a few minutes, suddenly released her mother's hand and walked over to David. Sir, she said with the solemnity of a very wise child, you hurt Michael Jordan's feelings. That makes Jesus very sad. The pure innocence of Emma's observation cut through all of David's defenses like a sword of light. He looked down at those big eyes filled with disappointment and felt something inside his chest definitively break. David whispered, I didn't mean to. I never thought. You never thought what? Jordan asked. I never thought I could be. That I was... David couldn't get the word out. Racist? Jordan finished the sentence for him. David nodded, tears now streaming freely down his face. I always considered myself a good person, David whispered. I donate to charity. I help my neighbors. How could I have done this? Jordan watched David cry and felt a complex mix of emotions. Anger, pity, frustration, but also understanding. He had spent his entire life dealing with people like David, people who weren't inherently evil, but who carried deeply ingrained prejudices they didn't even recognize. David, Jordan said calmly, the first step to changing is acknowledging there's a problem. David looked up at Jordan through his tears. How do I fix this? How do I atone? Before Jordan could respond, the shop doors opened again. Marcus Johnson, Jordan's driver, entered with a troubled expression. Mr. Jordan, Marcus said, the children outside are freezing. The little girl is starting to shake violently. Jordan immediately turned to the window. Lucy Chen was indeed trembling uncontrollably, and Tommy was trying to envelop her with his own thin coat. Sarah Chen was hugging both her children, but she herself was clearly suffering from the cold. My goodness, Jordan murmured. I got so caught up in this whole situation that I forgot why I came here. He turned to Patricia Rodriguez. Officer, these children require immediate assistance. They are suffering from hypothermia. Patricia glanced out the window, her police training kicking in. I'll call an ambulance, she stated, reaching for her radio. No, Jordan interjected. There isn't time. Marcus, get the family inside the store. Now. But sir, Marcus hesitated, the commotion in here. The commotion can wait, Jordan said firmly. These children cannot. And it was then that David Miller made the decision that would irrevocably alter the course of his life. Instead of continuing to defend himself, instead of continuing to deny reality, he did something that astonished everyone. Jennifer, David commanded, his voice resolute, turn the heat up to maximum, prepare hot chocolate, and bring blankets from the stockroom. Everyone in the store looked at David with utter surprise. Mr. Miller? Jennifer inquired, bewildered. Do as I said, David reiterated, and quickly. These children need help. Jordan regarded David with an unreadable expression. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was still hope for humanity. But what no one in the store knew was that Robert Chen, the children's father, was about to unveil a secret that would completely shift the dynamic of the entire situation. Marcus Johnson pushed open the doors of Wonderland Toys with the urgency of a man who had served in the army for a decade before becoming a delivery driver. Behind him, the Chen family shuffled in like haunted apparitions, each carrying the weight of months of street survival. Robert Chen was the first to enter. Despite his emaciated state from malnutrition in the cold, he still maintained the upright posture of a former athlete. His eyes rapidly scanned the store, noting the tense faces, the cell phone cameras still recording, and the electric charge of a situation that had spiraled entirely out of control. Sarah Chen clutched Lucy in her arms. The 5-year-old girl was blue with cold, her lips nearly black, shivering violently, even wrapped in her mother's thin coat. Tommy walked beside them, his 8-year-old eyes too large for his gaunt face, absorbing every detail of the toy store as if it were an impossible museum. "My God," Jennifer whispered, seeing the family up close for the first time. "They're just children." David Miller, still struggling with tears, felt as though he had been punched in the gut. Through all the chaos, these were the real people. This was the family Jordan had been trying to help, and he, David, had thwarted that aid with his blind prejudice. "Please," Jordan said kindly to the family, "come inside and warm yourselves. It's very cold out here." Robert Chen glanced at Jordan, and for a moment, recognition flickered in his eyes. But he said nothing. Instead, he focused on his children, who were his sole priority. "Tommy, Lucy," Sarah Chen said, her voice hoarse from shouting against the biting wind. "Stay close to Mommy." Patricia Rodriguez, the police officer, observed the family with the trained eye of someone who had witnessed many similar situations. Yet there was something different about this family. Despite their dire circumstances, they possessed a dignity that impressed her. "Ma'am," Patricia said to Sarah, "do you require medical assistance? Are the children all right?" "We're fine," Sarah replied quickly, her pride wounded, causing her to downplay the situation. "Just a bit chilly." "A bit chilly?" Jordan repeated incredulously. "Ma'am, your daughter is showing early signs of hypothermia." Tommy Chen, who had remained silent, suddenly lifted his head and looked directly at Jordan. His eyes widened with recognition and something more, a mixture of awe and utter disbelief. "Dad," Tommy whispered, tugging at Robert's sleeve. "Dad, look who's here." Robert followed his son's gaze and felt his heart lurch. Slowly, very slowly, he raised his eyes to meet Michael Jordan's gaze head-on. The ensuing silence was charged with something no one in the store could quite place. "Mr. Jordan," Robert said calmly, his voice carrying a weight that surprised everyone. "I know who you are." Jordan nodded. "And I'd like to know who you are." Robert took a deep breath, as if steeling himself to reveal a long-held secret. "My name is Robert Chen. I played basketball at the University of Illinois. Position, point guard. Height, 6 feet 1 inch. Scoring average, 18.7 points per game in the 1995 to 1996 season." The silence in the store was so absolute that one could hear the breathing of every person present. Jordan studied Robert more intently, and something in his memory stirred. "University of Illinois," Jordan murmured. 1995 to 1996. "You played Duke in the March Madness." "Yes," Robert nodded. "And we lost by 3 points. I missed the free throw that could have tied the game." The revelation landed in the store like a bombshell. This homeless man, this desperate father, had once been an elite college athlete. He had been a single free throw away from one of college basketball's greatest upsets. "What happened?" Jordan asked gently. Robert looked at his children, then at his wife, and Jordan saw all the pain in the world in that man's eyes. "I injured my knee in the last game of the season," Robert said, his voice trembling slightly. "It was supposed to be just a simple bruise, but the university doctor, he botched the surgery, infection, more surgeries, more complications." Sarah Chen squeezed her husband's hand, giving him the strength to continue. "I lost my scholarship," Robert continued. "I couldn't graduate. I couldn't go pro. The medical bills, they were over $200,000. We lost everything." Tommy Chen looked at his father with eyes full of pride and sorrow at the same time. "My dad taught me everything about basketball," Tommy told Jordan. "He said you were the greatest player ever." Jordan felt his throat tighten. Here was a man who had lost everything: career, education, future, due to medical malpractice and corporate greed. And yet he had retained his dignity and taught his son to love the sport that had cost him everything. "Robert," Jordan said, his voice thick with emotion, "I am so sorry about what happened to you." "It's not your fault, Mr. Jordan," Robert replied. Things just happen. David Miller, who had silently observed the entire conversation, felt himself shrink. He had accused a former college athlete of being a criminal. He had prevented Jordan from helping a family that had lost everything through circumstances beyond their control. "Mr. Chen," David said, his voice cracking, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I never imagined." Robert looked at David without anger, only weariness. "You couldn't have known," Robert said simply. "People see what they want to see." Emma Wilson, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation, suddenly let go of her mother's hand and ran up to Tommy. "Did your dad play basketball like Michael Jordan?" she asked with a child's excitement. Tommy smiled, the first real smile he'd had in months. "He was almost as good," Tommy replied. "He taught me how to shoot." "Can you teach me too?" Emma asked. "Sure," Tommy replied, and for a moment he was just an 8-year-old boy, dreaming of baskets and victories again. Jordan watched the interaction between the children and felt something shift within his chest. This wasn't just about giving Christmas presents anymore. This was about so much more. "Robert," Jordan said, "can I speak with you privately for a moment?" Robert nodded, and the two men walked to a more secluded corner of the store. Patricia Rodriguez, David Miller, and everyone else watched with growing curiosity. "Robert," Jordan said softly, "I have a foundation. We help former athletes who have gone through situations like yours. We offer temporary housing, medical assistance, and most importantly, jobs." Robert's eyes widened. "Mr. Jordan, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Jordan interrupted. "It's an opportunity. I need someone who understands basketball, who knows how to work with young people, who has overcome hardship and can teach resilience." Robert looked at his family, Sarah hugging Lucy to keep her warm, Tommy still animatedly talking basketball with Emma. What would I have to do?" Robert asked carefully. "Work with me," Jordan said simply. "Help other families like yours. Coach underprivileged kids. Be living proof that even when we lose everything, we can still get back up." Tears began to well in Robert's eyes. "Mr. Jordan, we've been on the streets for 4 months. I don't have proper work clothes. I don't have an address. I don't have—" "Robert," Jordan placed a hand on the man's shoulder, "you have something far more valuable than clothes or an address. You have character, and that cannot be bought." It was then that Lucy Chen, still in her mother's arms, began to cry from the cold. The sound cut through the conversation like a knife, reminding everyone that there were children suffering. "Mr. Jordan," David Miller said, approaching timidly, "I've prepared hot chocolate and blankets. Please let me help in some way." Jordan looked at David, then at the Chen family, then at all the faces in the store. Some still recording, others simply observing what had become the most extraordinary situation they had ever witnessed. "David," Jordan said, "do you want redemption? Do you truly want to help?" "Yes," David replied without hesitation. "More than anything in the world." "Then help me give these children the best Christmas of their lives." And that's when Jordan turned to the entire store and made an announcement that would change the lives of everyone present. "Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed something very rare. The moment when prejudice transforms into understanding and fear transforms into love. Now you are about to see something even rarer, a Christmas miracle happening before your very eyes." But what no one expected was that David Miller was about to make an offer that would surprise even Michael Jordan. Marcus Johnson remained near the store's entrance, observing the street through the glass with the constant vigilance of one who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. Even with the Chen family now safely inside the store, he couldn't relax. There was something in the atmosphere that made him uneasy. "Mr. Jordan," Marcus said, approaching, "there's a crowd gathering outside." Jordan glanced out the window and saw that Marcus was right. At least 30 people had congregated on the sidewalk, most holding cell phones, some clearly live streaming. The police lights were still flashing, creating a spectacle that drew onlookers like honey draws flies. "Great," Jordan muttered. "Just what I needed." Patricia Rodriguez checked her radio and frowned. "Mr. Jordan, my supervisor is on his way here, and apparently some reporters are too. This situation is becoming complicated." David Miller, who had spent the last few minutes distributing hot chocolate and blankets to the Chen family, approached with a worried expression. "Mr. Jordan," David said hesitantly, I I need to tell you something. My boss, the owner of the store, is on his way here. He got calls about the commotion and, Jordan asked, and he's not exactly forgiving, David admitted reluctantly. When he finds out I falsely accused you, he'll fire me on the spot. And I need this job. My daughter needs surgery. Robert Chen, who had just checked that Lucy was adequately warmed, approached the group. "Excuse me," Robert said politely. "I don't mean to intrude, but I couldn't help overhearing. Mr. Miller, how old is your daughter?" David looked at Robert in surprise. She's 6 years old. Why? And what kind of surgery does she need?" Robert inquired. David hesitated, then whispered, "Open heart surgery. She was born with a congenital defect. Insurance only covers part of the costs, and I have no way to pay for the rest." The ensuing silence was heavy. Sarah Chen approached, still carrying Lucy, who had finally stopped trembling. "David," Sarah said gently, "we know what it's like to have a sick daughter. When Lucy was a baby, she had severe pneumonia. We spent weeks in the hospital, watching her struggle to breathe." "How did you pay?" David asked. "We sold everything," Robert replied simply. "Our house, our car, all our savings. And it still wasn't enough. That's when things started to fall apart for us." David felt tears sting his eyes again. Here was a family who had gone through the very thing he dreaded, and they had lost everything. "I'm so sorry," David whispered. "I didn't know." "David," Jordan interrupted softly, "you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, but you can't take out your fears and frustrations on innocent people either." Just then, the shop doors burst open violently, and three men stormed in like a tempest. The first was a stout white man in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit, his face flushed with rage. The second was a younger man, clearly a lawyer by his leather briefcase and immaculate suit. The third was a private security guard, tall and intimidating. "Miller!" the stout man bellowed. "What in God's name is going on here?" David paled instantly. "Mr. Peterson," David stammered, "I can explain." Richard Peterson, owner of Wonderland Toys, swept the store with furious eyes, taking in the cameras, the police officer, the Chen family huddled in blankets, and finally his gaze landed on Jordan. "Who are you?" Peterson asked Jordan rudely. "And why is there a crowd and police in my store?" Patricia Rodriguez stepped forward, her police authority emanating like an aura. "Sir, I am Officer Rodriguez with the Chicago Police Department. There's been an incident here involving false accusations and assault." "Assault?" Peterson roared. "Who was assaulted?" "Miller, did you hurt a customer?" "Not exactly," David began. He thought I was robbing his store," Jordan interrupted, his voice echoing through the store with absolute authority. Peterson scrutinized Jordan more intently, noticing for the first time his posture, his confidence, something familiar. "And you are?" Peterson asked, still gruff. "Michael Jordan," Jordan replied simply. Peterson chuckled. "Of course you are. And I'm Barack Obama. Miller, call security to have this lunatic removed." Emma Wilson, who had remained silent, could no longer contain herself. "He really is Michael Jordan," Emma yelled. "I know because my father has all his posters." "A child recognized a con artist," Peterson said dismissively. "How surprising." It was then that Jennifer, the employee, finally mustered the courage to confront her boss. "Mr. Peterson," Jennifer said, trembling, "I saw his documents. He really is Michael Jordan." "Documents can be forged," Peterson's lawyer interjected for the first time. "It happens all the time." William Hayes, who had filmed the entire incident from the outset, stepped forward. "Mr. Peterson," Hayes stated, "I am an attorney, and I have recorded this entire situation. I can attest that this is indeed Michael Jordan, and that your employee assaulted him and falsely accused him." Peterson remained silent for a moment, processing the information. Then slowly the reality began to dawn on him. "Are you telling me," Peterson said slowly, That my employee accused Michael Jordan of attempting to rob my store? Precisely, Patricia Rodriguez confirmed. Peterson whirled around to face David, his fury causing everyone in the shop to recoil. Miller, Peterson bellowed, you have just ruined my business. Mr. Peterson, please, David pleaded. I can explain. Explain, Peterson roared. You publicly humiliated the most famous man in Chicago. This will be in every newspaper tomorrow. My store will be sued into oblivion. Jordan observed the unfolding scene and made a decision. Mr. Peterson, Jordan said calmly, may I speak with you privately? Peterson gazed at Jordan, a mixture of fear and awe on his face. You are really Michael Jordan? Yes, Jordan replied, and I have a proposition for you. Peterson gestured for his lawyer and security to wait, then followed Jordan to a corner of the store. All eyes were on them as they strained to overhear the hushed conversation. Mr. Peterson, Jordan said quietly, your employee made a grave error, but he made that error out of desperation to keep his job. He has a daughter who requires heart surgery. That is no excuse for, Peterson began. I am not excusing it, Jordan interjected. I am explaining it. David needs to learn about prejudice and how it affects innocent people. But firing him will not teach him that lesson. Peterson frowned. What are you proposing? I am proposing that David keep his job, Jordan said, but with conditions. What conditions? Jordan smiled, a smile that belonged to a man about to change lives. First, David will undergo an intensive course on diversity and inclusion. Second, he will volunteer at my foundation on weekends, learning about the realities faced by different people. Third, you will transform this store into an example of how to treat all customers with dignity and respect. Peterson blinked. And in return? In exchange, Jordan said, I'll pay for David's daughter's surgery. I'll forget what happened here today. And instead of suing you, I'll become an investor partner in this store. Peterson's jaw nearly hit the floor. An investor? Partner? I'm considering expanding my business into retail, Jordan stated, and this situation has sparked an idea. How about a chain of toy stores focused on serving all communities, especially the underserved? Peterson glanced around the store, seeing the Chen family still warming themselves with hot chocolate, David trembling with fear for his job, the cameras still rolling, the crowd outside growing. Mr. Jordan, Peterson said slowly, would you really do that? After what happened? Peterson, Jordan replied, I learned long ago that the best way to combat ignorance is with education. The best way to combat prejudice is with opportunity. And the best way to combat hate is with love. Peterson extended his hand. We have a deal, Mr. Jordan. They shook hands and Jordan turned to the entire store. Everyone, Jordan announced, I have some news. Everyone drew closer, including Marcus, who had re-entered after checking the situation outside. David, Jordan said, you will keep your job, but you will learn some important lessons about treating people with respect, regardless of their appearance. David began to cry tears of relief. And your daughter, Jordan continued, will get the surgery she needs. I'll cover the costs. David fell to his knees. Mr. Jordan, I don't deserve this. Not after what I did. You're right, Jordan said. You don't. Your daughter does. And sometimes we do good things not for the people we've wronged, but for the innocent people who will be helped. Robert Chen approached with Tommy and Lucy. Mr. Jordan, Robert said, about your job offer. The offer still stands, Jordan smiled. In fact, it just got even better, because now we'll have an entire network of stores where you can implement programs for struggling former athletes. Sarah Chen began to weep, but they were tears of relief and gratitude. Mr. Jordan, Tommy said, looking up, you're a real hero. No, Tommy, Jordan said, kneeling to be at the boy's eye level. Your father is the hero. He lost everything, but he never lost his dignity or his love for his family. That's true strength. Lucy, finally warm and comfortable, shyly approached Jordan. Sir, she said in her 5-year-old voice, are you Santa Claus? Jordan chuckled, a genuine warm sound. No, little one, but sometimes we can all be a bit like Santa Claus, spreading cheer when people need it most. It was then that Patricia Rodriguez approached, her expression grave. Mr. Jordan, she said, I must inform you that the situation outside is becoming unmanageable. There are reporters, TV cameras, and hundreds of people. You'll need a strategic exit. Jordan glanced out the window and saw Patricia was right. The crowd had grown exponentially, and he could see news vans arriving. Marcus, Jordan instructed, bring the car around to the back entrance. We'll leave discreetly. But first, I can't leave without fulfilling my objective, which is to buy the gifts for the children. Jordan turned to David Miller. David, Jordan said, I'm going to do what I came here to do from the start. I'm going to buy presents for Tommy and Lucy. David nodded vigorously. Of course, Mr. Jordan. Pick out anything from the store, whatever you desire. No, Jordan stated firmly, I will pay. Dignity is priceless, and I do not accept charity when I can afford it. Jordan walked toward the toy section, the entire Chen family trailing behind him. Tommy and Lucy watched with wide eyes as Jordan picked out the exact same toys he had attempted to purchase an hour earlier. The junior basketball set Tommy admired. The curly-haired doll Lucy desired, along with warm clothes, soft blankets, and a set of children's books. Tommy, Jordan said, handing over the basketball set, this is for you, so you can practice and one day become an even better player than your father. Tommy clutched the gift with trembling hands, tears streaming down his face. Thank you, Mr. Jordan, Tommy whispered. I will practice every day. And Lucy, Jordan knelt to present the doll. This princess is for you, so you never forget that you are special and deserve all the good things in life. Lucy hugged the doll to her chest, then hugged Jordan tightly. I will take good care of her, Lucy promised, and I will name her Hope. Sarah Chen could no longer contain her tears. Mr. Jordan, Sarah sobbed, my children have never truly had a Christmas. You've just given them the gift of a lifetime. No, Jordan said, glancing at the beaming children. They gave me the gift of a lifetime. They reminded me why we do this. David Miller approached the counter to process the purchase. Mr. Jordan, David said, your total is $347.89. Jordan handed over his credit card, then paused and smiled. Actually, David, Jordan said, add one more thing. I want you to pick out a special gift for your daughter, Anna. Something she can have when she wakes up from surgery. David was speechless for a moment. Then he chose a doctor doll with a toy stethoscope. She's always said she wants to be a doctor when she grows up, David explained, his voice thick with emotion, to help other sick kids. Perfect, Jordan smiled. Now, we're good to go. Yes, sir, Marcus confirmed over the intercom, having come back through the rear. The car is ready. Jordan turned to the Chen family. Robert, Sarah, kids, Jordan said, you're coming with me. You'll sleep in a warm hotel tonight. Tomorrow we'll permanently sort out your housing situation. Mr. Jordan, Sarah said, we don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, Jordan smiled. Wait until you see the gifts I haven't even bought for the kids yet. Emma Wilson came running up. Mr. Jordan, she shouted, can I have an autograph? Sure thing, Princess, Jordan said, signing a piece of paper. And thank you for being brave today. You stood up for me when no one else would. Emma beamed, then ran over to Tommy. Tommy, she shouted, we're Michael Jordan's friends now. Best Christmas ever, Tommy replied, laughing. David Miller approached hesitantly. Mr. Jordan, David said, I know my words don't mean much after what I did, but thank you for everything, and I promise I'll learn. I'll be better. Jordan looked at David for a long moment. David, Jordan said, we all have biases. The difference between a good person and a bad person isn't the presence or absence of biases. It's what we do when we recognize them. You recognized yours. Now do something about it. David nodded vigorously. I will, sir. I promise. Peterson approached with his lawyer. Mr. Jordan, Peterson said, when can we meet to discuss the details of our partnership? Next week, Jordan replied. But first, I want to see some immediate changes in the store. Training for all employees, clear non-discrimination policies, and a program to hire people from underserved communities. It will be done, Peterson assured. Patricia Rodriguez checked her radio again. Mr. Jordan, my supervisor has arrived. He will want to speak with you about not filing a complaint against Mr. Miller. No problem, Jordan said. But make it clear that I expect this situation to be used as a training example for other officers on how to handle false racial accusations. Understood. Patricia nodded. That's when Marcus returned through the back entrance. Mr. Jordan, Marcus said, the car is ready, and I found a route that avoids the cameras. Jordan turned to everyone in the store. Everyone, it was a pleasure meeting you. This wasn't exactly the Christmas Eve I had in mind, but it turned out to be much more meaningful. He turned specifically to Jennifer. Jennifer, Jordan said, you were brave today. You questioned your boss when you knew you were right. That's character. Peterson, give her a raise. Jennifer blushed and stammered a thank you. Jordan picked up Lucy and extended his hand to Tommy. Let's go, Chen family. Let's start your new life. As they headed for the back exit, Tommy clutched his basketball present as if it were the greatest treasure in the world, and Lucy hummed softly to her new doll. Jordan watched the children and felt he had finally fulfilled his original mission, but he had gained far more than he had imagined. David, Jordan said before leaving, remember, redemption is not a destination. It's a journey, and it begins now. And with that, Michael Jordan, the Chen family carrying their Christmas presents, and Marcus disappeared through the back exit, leaving behind a store full of people who had just witnessed something extraordinary. The transformative power of forgiveness, compassion, and a second chance. 3 months after that magical Christmas Eve night, the lives of everyone involved had been completely transformed. The Chen family not only got off the streets, they flourished. Jordan fulfilled every promise he made. Robert Chen now worked as a youth development coordinator at the Michael Jordan Foundation, using his experience as a former college athlete to mentor underprivileged youth. His first cohort had already clinched the regional junior basketball championship. Sarah Chen secured employment as a social worker, assisting other homeless families. Tommy was enrolled in a private academy on a full scholarship, where he excelled in both his studies and basketball. Lucy attended preschool and was already reading, her doll Hope always by her side. The family now resided in a comfortable home in a safe neighborhood, yet they never forgot their origins. Every weekend, they returned to the streets to distribute food and hope to other families in need. David Miller underwent the most dramatic transformation of all. Following his daughter Anna's successful surgery, fully funded by Jordan, he dedicated himself entirely to the Diversity and Inclusion program. He became a national speaker, sharing his story at schools, corporations, and events, educating audiences about the perils of unconscious bias. Anna Miller made a full recovery and became Lucy Chen's best friend. The two families, the Millers and the Chens, now spent every holiday together, a friendship forged in adversity and cemented by forgiveness. And Michael Jordan discovered that his greatest victory did not occur on a basketball court, but in a small toy shop on a frigid Christmas Eve, when he learned that true miracles happen when we choose to see the humanity in each other. If this story touched your heart as it touched ours, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Share it with someone who needs to believe that miracles still happen. Let us know in the comments which part moved you the most. Together, we can spread more love and less prejudice throughout the world. Subscribe now and become part of this family that believes in the transformative power of compassion.